this is at university. So I went to perform wudu, and I was making wudu, and somebody walked in, went straight into the toilet, the cubicle. So I continued, and by the time he came out, I was washing my feet. He'd clearly gone in, done whatever he's doing, and he's now headed for the door.
Didn't wash his hands.
Didn't wash his hands. As he's walking out, he turns around, looks at me and says, "That's disgusting."
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Salam Seekers presents another, we haven't said it actually, Thoughts of the Mind, right?
Yeah.
We haven't said that in a while. Maybe there's nothing to think in our minds. Maybe the minds have gone blank. I don't know what. I remember we used to always say it.
Yeah.
It's just a bridge to Salaamseekerpodcast.
Yeah, it's like Salaamseekerpodcast, alhamdulillah. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about a very, very interesting topic, is prayer outside of a mosque, your home, so in universities, workplace, maybe when you're traveling, just out and about, like how do you do it, etc. So and maybe we can give some tips actually, because certainly I've had a growth in the way I've adapted to certain situations and prayed, and maybe you can get some really good websites out there as well that actually people who travel and stuff, they give some good advice on how to pray, etc. But
where the prayer spaces, like that, local ones.
So I think inshallah you'll take something, because the thing is with this, I know a lot of people, especially workplace, universities, alhamdulillah, I think they tend to have prayer rooms. They do have a prayer room, so we can touch on that.
But I know recently, why I wanted to push for this a bit, is in schools. Have you guys heard? Like a lot of Muslims, apparently in Jummah, they don't have spaces, so sometimes they're praying in like locker rooms, and sometimes they're getting to be like in trouble for praying. So I've seen that in the news quite a bit. So I'm trying to understand, like, I don't know if you guys heard much about it, and if so, like, of course, these are, people, if people are allowed smoke breaks and allow stress breaks, whatever else. Then,
Yeah, maybe we should take it one institution at a time. Maybe start with schools.
Let's start with schools, So the one thing with schools, I've got quite a few nieces and nephews, alhamdulillah, and my sisters, especially my eldest nephew, he's basically like they're trying to prep him to start praying. He's not baligh, but they're trying to prep him to start praying. So she's actually actively gone and spoken to the teacher at like when he was in year 8 years old or something, and they said, look, he's gonna basically have these times where he needs a space to pray. Excellent. And they're starting that process. And inshallah, I think that's step one, which is
absolutely
parents
getting involved, parents speaking to teachers, staff, etc. And also for parents to come together and to work together.
That's what I was saying.
Fellow Muslim parents all come together, speak about issues, and sometimes advise one another as well, because if the communication is there, it will almost always make things easier. You see, rather than just out of the blue without having spoken about it. Right, I'm in the middle of an exam, I need to go and pray my salah. I personally, when I was at university a long time ago, when I had my exams, I spoke to them ahead of time, and alhamdulillah, no issues. I went to the exam office. I went to the exam office and I said, look, this exam is in the afternoon. I need to pray this prayer and this prayer at this time and this time. And I don't mind forfeiting my exam time. I don't mind. Inshallah, barakas from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the communication was there. And it was well in advance. I spoke to them weeks in advance, because give them some time to think about it, give them some time to organize themselves. And alhamdulillah, I never had an issue.
I think the main question is, Siddhi, did you pass?
Yes.
It's because he took the time out to pray.
Okay, I've actually got a funny story, and this is not the funny story I said, but I just thought of a funny story. Go on. But this is actually from another person, right? It was a brother giving the story, and he goes, basically exactly this. His prayer time fell exactly during Jummah time, right? And unfortunately, it was a 1 hour exam, and I think he only caught. He said he has to go Jummah. They're like, no, people are saying you're gonna miss your exam. You're gonna the time, etc. I think he only made the last 10 minutes
of the exam,
and it was a multiple choice question.
Oh, right? I've heard of this.
Have you heard of this? Yeah. And then basically he only had 10 minutes. He's done the first question. He goes, it's A. He's done the second question. It's A. And he's like, wait a minute. And then like 5 minutes left. So it's like, you know what? I'm just going to do A all the way through. He actually got 100%. Because and it's a true story, because he basically got 100% and everyone else failed. Not failed, but they didn't get close on it. It was actually a psychological test. They were doing, so they were trying to show that, because obviously, we all done it. We all done it. When we were like A, B, A. The next ones were like, definitely can't be A.
Yeah.
And then he goes, this is proof that it's barakah from Allah. And I think that's another thing. Like, prayer is an obligation.
Yeah.
Do not ever forgo that obligation for work, for school. But schools, for example, the children need help.
They need help. And again, the children themselves won't be taken so seriously. So that's why the parents need to be involved, need to communicate, need to come together. And again, as I said, give them plenty of time. And organise yourselves. Like here in Luton, we have, I don't know if it's across the board, but I know of primary schools at least, they give children time off on Eid. They have days off.
Yeah, they do.
So again, where's that coming from? That's coming from the parents organising, communicating, meeting. You have to be involved in this kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think you can get involved in like parent. What do they call it? PGM meetings?
The governor stuff.
So become a governor. Involved in the PTA meetings.
I think they should. I think otherwise you haven't. That's what one of my other sisters. She said, why in Christmas, Easter, they know about all of this stuff, because it's the parents that are pushing for this. Or not changing the curricula to say, look, if it's a Muslim, like 90%, most of the schools in certain areas are like 90% Muslims, stuff like that. Why are you still doing things that are not Muslim?
One of our problems as an ummah, certainly here in the UK, but I feel across the board as an ummah, is we are very passive, but then we love to complain as well.
First,
that this is wrong, why they're doing this, they're so bad, but what are you doing about it?
It's true.
Exactly. So, is there anything to add on schools?
Yes, so with the school, obviously people are a bit younger, and it's very easy for them to think that if they don't have the option to pray, then they don't have to, they're okay. And many people might not know that you have to make up for that prayer and stuff like that.
So, not miss it in the first place. Once again, you put things into place to make sure you pray the prayer in the first place. And then secondly, yes, if despite one's best effort it is missed, it needs to be made up. But it is important for people not to take advantage, though. I have come across this. When I was teaching at sixth form college, I did come across it, that people would say, oh, I'm off to pray. So the teacher would let the person pray, and then they'd go off for half an hour or an hour.
That's what ruins it for everyone.
That's what ruins it.
It ruins it for everybody.
They have these cases where they can say, look, this happened and that happened.
Or, for example, that we used to have two Jummah prayers. So the person could pray a Jummah prayer in lunchtime, but chooses to tell his teacher, I need to pray now, so I need to skip a part of the lesson. See, so people need to be careful with this kind of thing, not to use it in order to skip classes or to get a break, in a sense. No.
And plus, I want to add, even like on a school level, it's very easy in hindsight to think it's not that deep, but like on the day of judgment, when you think that you missed that one prayer just because of that one class, you're gonna
especially if it's obligation and like obviously you could go through high school where most of the years, I'm saying for male and females, obviously they have a certain different, but most of the years it might not be an obligation on you, but
because the upper limit is 15.
15.
Well,
so
14 and a half.
14, so let's say year 10, year 9, year 10. For females, you can go from, is it...
the same thing. The upper limit is the same for both. Upper limit is 15
but the
years.
lower limit
for a girl is 9 years. And 12 for a boy.
So there you go. So 12 and 9, so that's year 7, year 8, and year 9, for example. So you could get into the habit of not praying at all.
year 6 for girls, probably. You're talking about 9 years old.
Oh yeah, right.
Seven's like 11-year-olds.
So you can get into a habit very quick that actually you might, for males, you might have gone through 2 years where you've not prayed at all, and it is a bit of a shock that you have to start adapting, especially winter time. Most of your school time, you've at least, maybe not Maghrib, you can go home and pray Maghrib because school ends at 3:30.
And again, this is what we're speaking about. Look, if there is a genuine reason, they say, look, we don't really want you to pray Dhuhr at school, because we know, we've spoken to your parents, we've spoken to local masjid imams, that we know you have all the way to 5 p.m. or 5:30 p.m. So again, we need to be considerate and flexible.
I think that's fine, inshallah. And that's fine. Okay, so schools, we spoke about schools.
Another thing I like to add about schools is something that I experienced when I went to my schools, because it's a majority white school and had a few Muslim friends. So if you do, obviously they don't have the facilities for you to pray. So how do you give someone the confidence to pray and find a space to pray when you know that there's so many non-Muslims around you?
I think that was
and I think that extends to even workplace, like the confidence just to pray in public.
Yeah,
like you're always wondering like who's looking at you, all of that stuff. You
it takes us into workplace very good actually.
Yeah.
So let's answer that question.
Yeah, I think there are a number of things. First of all, it's very important for Muslims themselves to be strong, to reflect upon the Quran and Sunnah. For example, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that the strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the weak believer. You know, you train yourself as an individual, you remind yourself of these things, you reflect upon these things, and you put them into practice. And the more you put them into practice, the stronger you're going to be. But there's also the element of strength in numbers. We know that's the case. We know people tend to feel more comfortable if they're, 2, 3, 4 of them rather than an individual. So it is very important for Muslims individually to be strong. But then, yes, there's no harm in making things easy for you, for yourself. So if it's at work or if it's at university or college or wherever it may be, and you do have to pray in a slightly more public area, then try to do it together. And if you can, fine. And if you can't, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter what people think about you. What's important is where you are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I was going to say something. Basically, when I started my workplace where I'm at now, no one was praying. And at my interview, I told them, I was like, I need to pray. Are you guys able to provide me this? And they're like, we should be able to do this and that. At the time, there was a different manager that was there. So I was like to him, like, when I started, I was like, I need to go and pray. And they had no room whatsoever to pray. So I was doing it in the passageway for, I'd say, a couple months. And then afterwards, we had like a stock room upstairs. He was like, you know what, we'll make this into a prayer room. And then outside he has like engaged and not engaged.
Yeah, that's what we have that in use and not in use.
And then basically when we do praying, we just swipe down the sides, come in and out. And then afterwards he's like, you know what, get a carpet or something so it's like not hard for him. So we just got a carpet.
So steps like, in it. That one thing I realised with non-Muslims is that, once what they see and this is something I learned. We've moved on to workplace, by the way, guys. So we're going through the years. Once what we've seen, if you're strong in your conviction, right? You want to pray. They actually make it easy for you somehow.
They respect it.
And I've spoken to you about this quite a bit, haven't you? I've said it because when you're like, okay, fine, I'm gonna pray Jummah, it's okay if I miss Jummah. They'll be like, this person not taking it seriously.
It doesn't really care.
Why should they care? And I'm exactly like you. I say it to them in any interviews I go. I say it to my manager. Friday, I'm working from home. Like it's a hybrid role, but whatever. Or Friday, if it's not hybrid, the advice is Friday. I will do 1.5 hours lunch break. I can make that up. It's not a problem. I can leave a bit later. There's so many options out there. If you've got meetings, say please at Friday during this time, please don't put a meeting because I'm going to go and pray. I need to pray because other prayers you have a bit of flexibility, but they're the kind of steps you need to take. You have to have conviction. If you truly want to pray, do it, and that's what happens. And they're the steps.
That was what happened to my one as well. Like on Fridays, when I had the interviews, I was like Fridays. It was a part-time, innit? I was like Fridays, I have to have it off. I was like Fridays, don't put me in. It's a permanent day off. Ever since I've started, he's had Fridays off. He's like, it's permanently off.
And you always find like a person that really helps you. So Siddhi, one of my first workplaces, I was saying the security guard. He's just a building manager, so he doesn't even work in my company. He basically went through so much lengths. Because I used to pray in the passage of the corridor, right? And he basically got me a yoga mat. He basically, whenever he saw me go there, it's like a fire exit as well. So technically, I'm not really allowed to be there. He used to be like, no one's allowed to go there. So he went through so much extent that he knew what I was going to do. And it's like, you have so much options at work.
Definitely is. It's similar to my workplaces. Well, when I used to work, we had a receptionist who was a non-Muslim. And we used to ask him, can we have to pray somewhere? So he'd find like an empty meeting room and we had to just walk around the building and stuff. And I remember within 2 months, we came to him and I was like, is there a free prayer room? He's like, we made a prayer room now. And I was like, what?
Exactly.
That's what I was going to say, your story.
And they had a huge empty office. They call it multi-faith room. You'll find no other faith apart from Muslim. But
to the point where you just see prayer mats.
No, it's true. We go in and just be prayer mats on a huge office, prayer mats, and then start seeing sisters going in now. And alhamdulillah, every time I went to pray, it's like a full congregation.
It's such a great opportunity, isn't it, as well, for Muslims to gain reward as well. If you are doing that, and others are going and praying, praying there.
And to meet other Muslims in your workplace, you'll be surprised how many Muslims are in your same
That's
office building.
That's when you realise, it's like, because it's very similar thing happened to me. So I worked in a very corporate place, and like they had so many rooms, but nothing was like dedicated as a prayer space. And then slowly, one of the office, I used to keep booking that.
That's what I was going to say. Give that advice. Book out rooms.
Book out room, and then slowly, other sisters would reach out to me, and they'd be like, "Oh, can I go pray there?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. That's the prayer time." So I'll book it for like 2 till 4 p.m. whatever, random times. So I knew other people are going to go and pray, and then they actually later on, I heard, even when I left, they made that into a prayer room.
Basically, be transparent, clear,
courteous.
Yeah, of course.
Because the thing is, you have to do it in a nice manner, and don't use. I fell into this habit. I don't use the excuse of, but they allow smoke breaks. Why? Because it's true, right? They do. If you count up their smoke breaks, it does add up, right? But what they're doing compared to what you're doing, there's no comparison. Like it's not a comparison, because you're actually submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're devoted, it's an obligation. They're going and doing something which is completely different.
And the point is, we're ready to sacrifice. If they say you can pray, but it has to be in your lunch hour, we'll say, okay, fine, we don't want additional time. You can pray this prayer as well, but you have to align it with your break. We'll do so. We're willing to make the sacrifice. But this is the point. As you said, conviction is very important. But you're also courteous, and you give people plenty of opportunity and time. Don't throw it on them in the moment, unless you have to. Sometimes you have to. It's your first day, for whatever reason you weren't able to speak about it before, and now you need to go and speak to them. But as we've been saying, people are really, a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people, non-Muslims, they are very respectful. I remember on more than one occasion I've had situations where I've had to pray in the office. It's a shared office, and afterwards they'll ask me questions like, "Is it okay if we eat?" What's your favorite?
I find it really.
Even like they know not
shout out to the non-Muslims.
The kind ones.
But like naturally they pick up. They won't walk in front of you. They won't make any noise.
They're more respectful. They go
I'm so sorry.
But they don't realise you're praying, so they can't really communicate.
But this is important. That should be respected. They're respectful. That should be. We're not going to make fun of it. It's, we're just raising it, and it's we're having
we're saying it in a positive manner.
In a positive manner.
It's beautiful. It's much less sweet. It's really nice.
It really. You gain a respect for them.
Absolutely.
And you do, and I make dua for them. When I see that, I'm like, if they're so respectful of a faith that they've not even looked at, they would make perfect good Muslims. MashaAllah, may Allah guide them. So that's corporate. Another thing is wudu. Wudus can be a bit funny.
So someone walks in a pub.
Siddi, I remember Siddi's story where the guy, Siddi, why don't you say it?
Okay, this is at university, so I went to perform wudu, and I was making wudu, and somebody walked in, went straight into the toilet, the cubicle. So I continued, and by the time he came out, I was washing my feet. He'd clearly gone in, done whatever he's doing, and he's now headed for the door.
Didn't wash his hands.
Didn't wash his hands. He hasn't washed his hands. And as he's walking out, he turns around, looks at me and says, "That's disgusting." I was baffled. I didn't actually respond to him. I didn't know what to say, because I'm washing my feet and that's filthy. He's either urinated or defecated, and he's just... He didn't even wash his hands.
Did you use a tissue to open the door?
I must have used something. Because, normally I use something anyway, because for us as Muslims, it's so surprising that people have to be reminded, wash your hands after urinating. It's just filthy as far as we're concerned.
And that's cleanliness is part of our faith. But wudu, what I would advise people is with wudu, with the shorter days, alhamdulillah, if you find you're really struggling with, you can keep one wudu for several of your prayers. But especially, that's for the norm. People who struggle, of course, it might be different, but just find there's disabled toilets, stuff like that. You have to be careful. No, you do have to be careful, of course, but but then you can do wudu in so many ways, alhamdulillah. And I think the key is that, like, you can't pray without wudu, so
you have to make it, and don't be embarrassed, don't be worried. So of course,
and clean up. So sorry to interrupt. Clean up, because that is a problem. Even in like normal like mosques and stuff, don't make a mess. What I tend to do, I swear, is I actually make it cleaner than it was before. Because you should. Because the thing is, I put tissues down. I just clean up before, because people don't like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. With disabled toilets, and obviously you have to be observant of the policy. And if you can do it in a manner that it doesn't contradict the policy, or you're not taking the right of a disabled person. But other than that, just don't worry about it. Don't be embarrassed about these kind of things. I had nothing to be embarrassed about. I was washing my feet. That guy had a lot to be embarrassed about. So you can't let it get to you. You can't let it trouble you. But also learn fiqh.
I was just going to ask that
question as well.
You can do fard, but especially with it, because normally the biggest issue is the feet. You have the option of leather socks, khuffain. But again, I will tell people, don't use them until you've studied it. Just the section in fiqh on khuffain, you could study it in maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. And you get the rulings there. But people who don't study it and start using leather socks or the like and just wiping over them, almost every time I've come across a person doing that, they're making major errors, and their wudu ends up being invalid. For example, they put them on, use them for a little while, take them off, put them back on. You can't do that. Once you've put them on and used them,
you have to keep them on.
You have to keep them on as long as you're going to continue to use them.
And
if you're going to take them off,
material as well.
It has to be nice and thick. Ideally leather, but even other thick materials will work. But yes, it's not just wear any old socks. So there are details, and people need to learn them. But once they've learned them, it can really help.
Alhamdulillah.
So just another question is just that some people might think with wudu that you have to drowse yourself in water and stuff. You can do it with a bottle outside, because what's the minimum amount of water you need to use? Because I believe 3 drops need to fall off.
It needs to flow, and some drops. So
you don't really need that much water. You don't need to wet the whole bathroom. And if you're in a rush and you're scared of being seen, then you don't have to go to the bathroom and make a big scene out of it. You can. There are ways to, you know what I mean, be a bit more concealed for your own peace of mind.
Because different people are different. And this takes us good into the last one, which we're going to talk about: public places, when you're traveling, etc. How do you do prayers? Alhamdulillah, some motorways now do have prayer places, etc. But say if you don't, and you're traveling, or you're in a different country, service station, etc. Safe, etc. Again, same thing with wudu. You can do it in public places quite comfortably, I think, if you can do it. But so the last one I want to touch on is public places, and then I'll tell my funny story. This is in relation to a public place. Shall I tell my funny story?
Yes, go on.
Okay. Why don't you just start off with that?
Okay. It might be funny. If it's not fun, then we'll edit it out.
We'll call it a story. Funny is in brackets. Funny.
Okay. But you guys may have heard of this actually.
We heard of the slap. I heard of the slap one as well, but it was still.
Did you watch the slap one? It's actually
years ago. I've seen it. Somebody sent it to me. It's really short, isn't it?
Basically,
and it's in a foreign language.
But you know the gist of it.
Basically, they had. To watch that joke, they need to watch our previous episode.
You have to watch a previous. But that one, I was about to say it, but I think it's fine.
The delivery work.
It was really funny though. I don't advocate for slapping, but the way he proved his point, it was so short and sweet, just like the slap. Okay. Anyways, the funny story. So public places. We're talking about prayer in public places. So this is brother, and I was reading. Was it watch or reading? It might be true, might not. Don't quote me. But he said basically he was in gym and it was time for prayer, and basically he started praying. Right in the gym, and then mashallah he started praying the salah or whatever because it was time for prayer. It just shows that in different public places you can start praying. So he done his salam on the right, he done his salam on his left. He turns around, and then everyone's doing the same thing. Non-Muslims, everyone. And then afterwards he's like, "What's happening here? Why is everyone joined?" They're like, "Oh, we thought it was a yoga session." Seriously said it. And he was like, okay, mashallah, that's not a problem. So everyone was following his steps, and they thought it was a yoga session. Now I don't know how legitimate this is, but I take the brother's word for it. But the point is that actually, when you pray in public places,
it has an impact.
It has an impact, and you will get a positive response. And
Some people might not like it, but
there are people that
they only think about for like 10 seconds.
No.
Yeah.
Most,
people,
they don't care.
They don't even notice. Like I prayed in the park, so we were like literally.
Mashallah, you know what? We've spoke about this. We've literally spoken about the different places. We actually talk about it in a nice way. Which the different places we have prayed, the different countries we in different places. We prayed on top of a mountain. I can literally say we prayed on top of a mountain. We prayed in castles. We prayed in hills. We prayed
in France where you're not allowed to, which we didn't.
Yeah, we prayed. What's that place? Arc de Triomphe. We prayed inside Arc de Triomphe. We prayed inside there. There's I done my salah, and then the lady security guard goes, no, you're not allowed it.
Like
so we didn't know it. If we did,
cannot,
if we did know it, another thing is do respect the country, do respect what you're doing.
We actually didn't know.
No, we didn't know. But
I went by the slogan, which is freedom. France, so for me, that's what it meant.
Yeah, mashallah.
They don't have much liberty anymore.
But they do also say another tip. As I said, one of the tips is changing rooms. You can pray, but be careful because with changing rooms you have to be a little bit careful because there's mirrors. Yeah, if you're running for prayer and you're outside and you don't have it, changing rooms, there's mirrors and music, so do be a bit careful.
Changing maybe.
No, you're gonna
in like
in
shops where you try
cubicle. Yeah. So, Siti, what is the ruling on music and praying whilst there's music?
Of course, normally we don't want to do that, but if you're completely stuck and you're going to miss your prayer, otherwise you will pray.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So does anyone have any stories in public places or any advice on when you're out and about?
What I'd say is, if you have like a mandem get together, like Muslim.
Would you like to clarify what mandem means?
Like, group of boys, isn't it? Like group of friends.
We'll have a glossary, don't worry. Salaamseeker glossary.
Basically, like football session. I'm not sure if you do this, but like football session.
We do.
What I started doing because when the time went forward.
Yeah.
Is it forward or back?
One of the two. Whatever it is.
Whichever one's longer, and basically I was like, Asr comes in.
Yeah.
And when we're playing football, we're not gonna have the time because it's gonna be Maghrib. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Let's do this. Everyone come to football with wudu. Yeah. And then I'll lead it. And then after I lead it, we'll just start playing football.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we started doing that as a habit. And then afterwards, Asr got longer anyway. And Maghrib is later. So I was like, you know what? We could just pray.
But you get the odd person that says,
I've
lost my wudu.
Or they're wearing the shorts and they don't have any.
That's why you give them advice. You say, look, we are going to pray. Because some people don't think of that.
Anyway.
Yeah, you just cover, but we are going to pray. Make sure you come in covered
or just bring like a tracksuit.
Yeah, and then have wudu.
Maybe you guys can carry some extra.
Oh, like shorts.
Bibs.
Yeah, we could do that. But the point is, if you work towards it, it's so easy. One thing I've realised, actually, I saw this myself, like wherever you go, it becomes so easy.
Potential place to pray.
That's what we're saying. We're like, I'm already eyeing it up when we go places. We're like, that corner. I tell you, sorry, I like to start at that corner. I'm gonna pray there. I don't want to miss my prayer, and especially when you pray on the flight, because obviously if you don't sit down and pray, if you sit down and pray, you have to make it up. If it says Fard Salah, if I'm not correct,
you have to pray.
Yeah. So you have to pray something, but for whatever reason, if you can't, especially some of the planes are really small.
Go to first class.
That's true. Yeah. So I'm just saying, if you can't,
those that don't have that money.
No.
Siddi's not saying about
if
that.
I get completely stuck on a plane and I can't find anywhere else, I just quickly go to first class, pray, come back.
But
Siddi, sometimes I've noticed they have allowed us to pray in the kitchen. Do you remember?
Yeah.
When they let me?
But my advice to that is arrange your trip if you can.
Yeah.
To not make because I've realised actually
it's easier.
There's so many things you can do that are like quite easy to do.
When we were looking at the
Turkey
our flights, we were speaking about prayer.
Yeah. What trip are we talking about, Siddi? So we are going to be doing a Turkey trip, inshallah. So please do look out for the details of that. Islam Answers Istanbul Retreat 22-24. So many things, inshallah. So but point is, honestly, with prayer, it should be like, no matter where you are, what you're doing,
it's a must.
It's a must.
This is something you're going to do. You're just trying to work out how to do it.
So I was going to say, Siddi, us as Muslims, and maybe we need to wrap up soon as well. When we talk about prayer or anything that is fundamental with our deen, should we work our life around that rather than a job around prayer? So prayer being the base.
It's like what Ibrahim said, his mentality. The center. He went in there in the interview thinking about his prayer. And it was his interview. Do you get what I mean? If we have that mentality, honestly, it will become easier. But that question was for Siddhi anyway, so sorry. Go on.
I know you've answered it, mashallah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you organise your day around your prayers.
Yeah.
Whatever you need to do, you're also thinking about, okay, how am I going to get my prayer done? Where am I going to do my prayer? And such things. And since we have just touched upon, praying at service stations and things like that, of course you should, and mashallah, something I regularly do, but especially with sisters, and especially if they're alone, they need to be a little bit careful where they pray.
Yeah, that's
I'm not
true.
saying
That's
don't pray your
advice,
prayer, but just make sure you observe your safety, especially since we live in a climate where Islamophobia is rife, but the attacks tend to be against
the sisters.
Especially someone who's wearing hijab and prostrating or doing something. But be careful. That's very good advice.
Be careful. I'm not saying miss your prayers.
No, but
again, it comes down to organising. But if you are stuck in a situation where you're going to jeopardise your safety or miss your prayer, you're going to miss your prayer.
Yeah.
Don't jeopardize yourself.
Or in that case, can they sit in the car?
Sit in the car and pray,
and
then make it up later on.
Because obviously for them, it's more.
In the UK, we don't have these situations, but the scholars did speak about sometimes you might be in a situation where you can't even stop your vehicle, and you just end up missing the prayer because you're in a dangerous area.
Yeah. Sometimes that can happen actually. Yeah.
I just wanted to end on one thing from my experience, is that praying in public is actually a very good way of giving dawah.
Yes, absolutely.
And most people learn from seeing people's actions, right? And a lot of Muslims converted because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they saw how he was in his character, his actions, and it's through that. So I remember so many times when, my parents would make me pray in public, and when I was young, I used to be quite scared about what people were going to say. But I remember people used to come, during prayer, I'd hear people say, oh wow, what are these people doing? We'd be in the park, and it would be English people would be like, oh wow, look at these people. And they'll ask you often. We went to Brighton once, we prayed on the beach. This other brother came up to us, was like,
you prayed on that pebbly beach?
They were like, were you guys praying? We're like, yeah. And he was like, mashallah, that's so good. I really respect that you guys did. So people, they become encouraged.
And what happens is some Muslims, they look at it and they get more confident.
Yeah.
And they come and join. I love that. And they're more confident in themselves, thinking, actually, you know what, I can maybe do that as well. And I think it is that people are scared, and we can't negate that. We can't say that people, why are you scared, this, that.
They have a right reason to.
They're scared because of all of this stuff. The main reason why people are scared is because of their safety. They're not scared because of the prayer. They're scared of their safety. So we do need to appreciate that. But what main thing is, don't be scared, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to protect you.
Yeah, it's like, do you prioritize what Allah has given you, or what
because you should be more scared of the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you miss the salah, rather than be scared of
who cares what people
do? And Allah will protect you if you're praying.
If you know there's an imminent danger.
That's the point that I was saying, Siddhi was saying, and the last,
of course, it's Maghrib, and a sister is, somewhere, and it's maybe 10:30 p.m. It's still Maghrib time right now, for example. She pulls over somewhere dark.
It's not.
This is not. You don't jeopardize your safety.
Quickly, just on that confidence thing. All it takes is one person to start praying. Just try and be that person. Try and be that person to start, and you'll see it.
MashaAllah. No, 100%. I completely. One last question, Siddhi. There's this thing of the world being. The whole world is
the world. Yes, the Prophet ﷺ said in Sahih Bukhari that the entire world was made for me a place of purification and prayer.
So just a fiqh related, if you know that there is no, visually you cannot see any impurity, what I want to say is you can pray anywhere, essentially.
You can pray anywhere, even if you don't put a prayer mat. And most people are going to be more comfortable if they put something down, be that a prayer mat, their jacket, or whatever it is. But yes, as a legal ruling, no, it's not required. If you cannot observe impurity there, you can pray.
You can pray there. Okay.
I know you said last thing, but I just wanted to make this point. A lot of times, Siddhi, when I do say this to my non-Muslim colleagues or my non-Muslim friends when they're with me, and they are like, "Wow, that's amazing that you can actually pray," because they think without that mat, you can't pray, or without a specific room. And we're like, no, actually, us as Muslims, as long as I'm not endangering someone else, because that's also important. I can't be, someone's in a hospital, for example, if you're blocking.
We have to be very aware. That's part of being a Muslim.
So when I do say that, they're like, oh, they don't say mashallah, but they say that's amazing,
Because ultimately, people do have that fitrah within them. They have that natural primordial state of recognizing, even though it might be in the subconscious, but having a devotion to God subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when they see it, a lot of people will be impressed by it.
Yeah.
Some won't, because some people hate and spread hate and such things, but a lot will. And it's worth pointing out, certainly from the Hanafi perspective, it's actually better to pray on the natural surface of the earth than on a prayer mat.
Oh, mashallah.
It's actually superior.
Oh wow. Okay.
Is that why the Shias have the little rock?
I think they use earth some kind of earth.
Turban.
Whereas Hanafis, they say, when you read the books of fiqh, they'll say, and it is permitted to pray on a prayer mat. You see how they put it?
Rather than
on the natural surface. It's okay to do it, meaning the default is natural surface of the earth.
So interesting.
That is very interesting.
That's a good thing. Like when it's sunny, go pray in your garden or something.
That's what we do in our class when we're doing class with the prayer. So, alhamdulillah, okay, that's a really beneficial discussion. I feel, alhamdulillah, if anyone does want to talk to us about, because it seems like we all have some kind of experience praying in all these kind of different areas, and maybe we didn't touch on things.
Alhamdulillah, I think in general we've had positive experience, and some people might have had very negative.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So anyone who's got negative experience,
that can create fear in people.
and it can put them off certain things. But you can talk to us. You can directly message us. You can just let us know. We're happy to talk if you've got any questions for Siddhi, or indeed the lesson, the less of the Siddhis. Then please let us know. But as said, inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for everyone and allow us to practice our faith, because we are in a blessed country where actually we can practice our faith without any,
real danger.
Yeah, real danger. Alhamdulillah.
There are countries where they outlaw this kind of thing.
Alhamdulillah for security. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.